Jamie here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding Wednesday, August 27th, 9:06 a.m. Happy Hump Day or happy NVDA earnings if you celebrate. Talk really quick about the markets. Some of the names I'm looking at go from the S&P futures. Actually just dipped back into the red here. SPY's under 645. I don't know if there's Fed speaks. You got Fed, Williams talking on CNBC. I don't know if that's some of it, but I mean, we're not down much. We're down barely a tenth percent. And Monday and Tuesday it seemed like they were identical sessions, except Monday we had melt to lows, and then an end of day pull was like the last couple minutes, big pull to the downside, closing at lows, and then yesterday was the reverse. We melted to the upside, and then a late 10-minute rally pushed stocks to highs. We'll see what happens here today. You look at Nvidia's numbers; they're just insane when you look at just the top line growth, the earnings, just for a company of that size and magnitude to see the huge beats and raises and then the continued bullish commentary for how many quarters in a row now, it just like unprecedented. And at some point that comes to an end, right? But you would think the market would start pricing that in sooner rather than later. So you have to think there's going to be a huge beat and raise after the close. It's just two questions: is it going to be enough, and then is it going to be a sell the news event? And I worry a little bit about the latter. I remember when Apple used to be the big dog, right? And Kramer used to say, "Oh, the only thing I look for market sentiment is I wake up in the morning, I look where Apple's trading." He used to say that all the time, and that's back when I used to watch CNBC more so than I do now. I listen to a diverse amount of different publications and things like that, but now it's NVIDIA is kind of like the proxy for the market, right? So we'll see what happens here today. To me, it's like NVIDIA. Okay, I think it's a 6% implied move, a little more than 6%, $11. Do I have it pulled up? Do I have my thing? I think I do. 6.34% implied move. So it's nothing crazy, but then you look in the context of it's a $4.4 trillion company. So you're talking it could swing three. The market's implying a nearly $300 billion swing in its valuation up or down, right? That's just mind-boggling to me, but it is what it is. I think it's more impactful the earnings to other names. Some of the names that would a lot of conversation over the last year or so in regards to the capex spend, right? I think that's the big leg of growth, and especially for the GDP growth, right? People look at the consumer, and the consumer is consumption is a lot of GDP growth in the economy. I mean, this capex spend story it's been there for a while, but it will continue, especially if NVIDIA posts another monster non-sequitur. Then you have to think some of these other names are trying to play catch up. But anyway, so that's what's on tap today after the close. And tomorrow we have second read on second quarter GDP, which I don't think that's going to matter much. GDP now for Atlanta for the third quarter is 2.2%. So not negative, no recession. I mean, maybe we are in a recession like they've been saying. I don't see it. And then Friday we have PCE data, and PCE data is probably gonna be like 2.93. Hopefully, no surprises there. If there's no solid news after the close today on a huge beat and raise by Nvidia, then you got to think 650 or so on the SPYs coming into the end of the week. If it becomes a sell the news event, all bets are off, and then I'll certainly be open to adding some hedge positions. 628, 646 on the SPY. That, of course, what do we hit right here in the morning? 646 right on the nose, and then dipped all the way down to 644.88. We'll see what happens here today. I would expect more chop. And then hopefully, there's a lot of other chatter too around the small caps finally starting to take the baton. Hopefully that starts too. All right, so now just funny headline to Market Watch I always use for a little comedic relief, but here's a headline. No one is expecting a global boom. This former hedge fund manager says it's coming and has a way to play it. And then you just read some of the snippets, and this hedge fund manager or person, I don't know the exact name. I have to get the article, but it's from on Market Watch. And he says that AI replacing all these jobs is crazy. AI can't do basic math. I'm like, wow, this guy has not used any of the chatbots or things like that. Because if you don't think it can, these chatbots and what have you can do basic math, then wow, you're either ignorant or just totally dismissive. And so that you have another thing coming. And then he cited India. And back, I think it was like 2013, one of my top 5 stocks for 2013, 2014 was it India ETF. I think it was SCIF was the India small cap market ETF or whatever. Because it's like an easy argument that you think India. So to get the long story short, he thinks the global boom is going to be led by India, right? So you already had the China boom. And maybe China's coming back to life. I mean, people wait for that. There's a lot of folks who are betting the other way on China. And then India. Those are like easy um, calls to make because you look at the economies and say, oh, China and India, 1.4, $1.5 billion million, 1.4, 1.5 billion populations, 4 or 5 times the US population. At some point, you think if they can, it's like monetizing traffic, right? At some point, if they can get some productivity out of their population, just a function of getting the productivity will obviously drive GDP growth and global growth and things like that. And then he cited oil, right? Oh, they're gonna create huge demand for oil, but it's like oil is in such a different place now than it was 10 years ago, right? With the fracking, all the supply issues that it used to be just the Middle East. That's not the case anymore. Anyway, so I'm not saying dismiss, but it's just funny to put this person on the headline. Like I can make cases to go the other way on both sides. I like the bullish call, but all right, so that's the overall market. Rants for other days. I talked about capex spending. It was a nice chart there too. Just talking about the megatech in regards to oil and gas as a percent of global gross fixed capital formation. So the percent of capex going to mega cap AI infrastructure spend, just insane. All right, now quick on individual. So today, that's why I just watching some chop here. I'm still cautious. So yesterday's one of the first days in a while. I haven't done any trades. Sometimes I say sometimes not taking a trade is a profit, right? Because you're not losing money chasing something or trying to get feared into a trade or fear of missing out on a trade. So sometimes it's like almost testing your emotional fortitude, right? To not chase things. Not saying not to be aggressive sometimes, but to me, I have to have high conviction on a trade to, especially when I'm a little in the cautious mode, which I kind of am right now. So we'll see what happens after the close day. I'm open to both sides. Don't be surprised I had a small hedge put into the close here today, just because if there is just a slight hint of disappointment, you have to think some of these names, especially ones that have been some massive rise, might pull. And I'm not saying bear market correction, uh, any of that stuff, just maybe a small pull. All right. So that's overall market. So just individual names. First, and small caps, right? So S&P is down 0.02% for the week. So down 4.44% Monday, up 0.42% yesterday. So pretty much flat as a pancake. And small caps recoup some of the losses from Monday, still down about 0.2%. Hopefully it can take the reins. So now Serve Robotics, never wrong, just early. So got an initiation from Wedbush this morning, outperform rating, $15 price target. Hopefully the kick it needs, right? 26% short interest. The company trades 1x its guidance for 2026 revenues. I still don't get that. A high growth company, right? Couple $1 million in revenues this year is guiding to do $500 to $600 million in revenues next year. So I mean, do the math there. Just remarkable growth if it comes to fruition. So maybe the Bears think that that's not going to come to fruition, and that's some of the reason the huge short interest. Still an early stage company. I mean, backing spinoff from Uber, had some great partnerships and partnership with Uber Eats, acquisition last week. There was some news too. There's one of the robotics companies backed by Amazon is scaling out in Japan. So there was a headline yesterday after the close or yesterday evening. Just I think that whole area is just prime for disruption, and these names, especially that have more footing and backing, are gonna explode. So huge opportunity. Really like this one. I got those calls Monday. If it gets stays over 11 and squeeze, you look at it, it potentially has a tight Bollinger Band breakout here. So call me crazy. 1375 is the big area. It hasn't been up there since the end of middle of June. So if it gets a bid, breaks 11, and I could see it trading 1375 next week or two. So I'll continue to look for opportunities to add some more strikes. Also, I'll be taking some off on the way up as well, like I typically do. Then MDB, gosh, again, never wrong, just early, right? Playing the calls on and off for the last couple of weeks. Had the calls last week as well. Did the Lottos Friday. And then watching it. I'm on the Rant yesterday afternoon. You start looking at the strikes. It's like a 15% implied move. Then you start looking at all the different moves after earnings over the last 6 quarters. Average of like 17% implied moves. So I start doing the math there. I'm like, even if it moves 17%, any of these calls, the 270s are like $2, right? And stock closed at 214. So you're talking 25% move in 3.5 sessions. Well, 3 sessions, because you don't include Tuesday. It just did the risk reward didn't jive for me, right? So the 270s closed 167 by 197. So 270s stock closed at 214. I'm like, even if it gets to 250, maybe those calls are flat. So did I think it was going to be up at 277, 280? Nope. But even that, the 270s might be 5-bagger, 6-bagger. Heck of a lot less risk to pay to get that kind of performance. So I'm not going to kick myself here. Nice to have the right sentiment on it. If it gets down to 265 here today, I might look for some spec lottos into the end of the week. But the thing about MDB, its earnings I thought were great last quarter, similar, right? Beat and raise, and gapped, ran to 230, and then that was it. So, I'll be watching. Not going to say it pulls, but hey, maybe there's a scenario where it does pull. So open to both sides of the tape here on MDB. It's just mind-boggling to see this massive move on a similar beat and raise. So that's MDB. We'll see how that trades out here today. But under 265, if that holds, maybe I'll look for some spec lottos. If it doesn't, I'll be open. I'll maybe move back under 260. So I'll be watching those. Disappointing day for yesterday for Zoom. Tested its 200-day moving average 78.67, closed right at 78.81, so right near it. If it holds that, maybe I'll look for an opportunity to place some more calls in the next week. It almost seems like I was saying yesterday and Friday, it's just like a divisive name. And there's still some people who think at some point Zoom is just not going to exist, right? I mean, $8 billion cash, war chest, no debt. Anyway, I'm not going to go on a rant at that one. CGC up for the fourth straight session. Not much in the way of a move, though, so disappointing there. It's up 2 cents. Still watching that for an opportunity to play for upside. Same with IIPR, pretty much flat as a pancake. My calls are still double there. And then on the flip side, I was talking about the software names, and you see ServiceNow gapping up here this morning. After being weak, it was down 2% yesterday. I don't know, Salesforce had some issues. I started looking. I'm like, if there's some opportunities to play for downside, I might do ServiceNow for a break under 850. So don't be surprised if they get some puts there. You take a look. It had its earnings snafu, and then chopped around into April, the Liberation Day, and then it had great earnings back in July, gapped all the way over $1,000, trading up 1050, and it's been melting ever since. It's almost like maybe there's an underlying further out growth issue for the whole sector. So if that's the case, it continues to melt. So that might be one of my spec plays. And also, like if the market comes under pressure, Broadcom's another name I'll be looking, especially on the heels of NVIDIA earnings after the close. Yeah, that's it. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.